Hello, everyone out there in freelancing world in the Philippines. I'm Joe DiChiara, CPA extraordinaire, coming to you live from downtown BGC, Metro Manila. Yes, that's right, folks. I am here. I'm in the same time zone as most of you, uh, and I'm loving it. I'm in Bonifacio, global city, and I'm living the dream. And it's all because of the fact that I listened. I listened to my coach and mentor, my friend Larry Broughton, who is supposed to be here today, but he couldn't make it. I learned from people like Larry and people that we basically hung out with for the last 15 years that the show always goes on. And that's what we're doing here today. So let me bring you back to COVID. Okay, COVID, when my business was down. It was down. It was up here, and COVID hit, and it went down. I was couldn't pay my rent. I couldn't. It was difficult. It was really difficult, and I knew that I would recover, but I knew that things had to change. The definition of insanity is if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Uh, Now, my business was down not because of COVID, because I made a calculated risk. Okay. I had a pretty successful accounting practice. It was basically me and my mom for a long time. I had some big clients, and something just didn't feel right. Something didn't feel right because what happened was a lot of those clients became geniuses. I would help them. I would take them out of whatever situation they were in. If it was a tax problem, cash flow, if they needed to borrow money, I would take them and make them better. And when that happened, time and time again, they became geniuses. And they started asking me to do things that I just wasn't willing to do. Commit insurance fraud, money laundering, tax evasion. Yeah, that's right. Uh, Unfortunately, and I said, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm tired of helping rich people get richer and just try to cheat. I'm gonna create a new business where I'm gonna help people that really appreciate it. People that normally can't afford to hire an accountant. Because in the United States, that's the way it is, folks. It's expensive to hire an accountant. So I came up with this idea that became Bedrock Business Builders. And like I said, what we do is we target those businesses that don't normally hire an accountant. I think Larry is coming. He just texted me. But anyway, I said, okay, there has to be a change in how I approach this. And I knew Larry. He was a good friend. He was a mentor. And the difference between a mentor and a coach is you don't pay a mentor. Okay, they're just people they support you. You follow them. But I needed more. I needed more. And Larry, let me tell you a little bit about Larry. He started. First of all, uh, he was a special ops Green Beret. And what that means is you don't mess with him. He was the kind of guy that the U.S. would send into countries. Uh, let's just say he dealt with some bad people, some really bad people. Uh, anyway, he came out of the service, and he wanted to go into politics. Believe it or not, he got a job as a night auditor at a hotel. And what that is basically is, you're checking people in, you're making sure that all the rooms and the money is accounted for. And long story short, he went from a night hotel auditor to building a $250 million hotel empire. Pre-COVID, COVID really that's another story, but he's recovered. Anyway, I couldn't afford Larry at the time. I hired him anyway because, like I said, I needed to turn things around. And I said, out of everybody I know, he's the one that I believe can coach me through this. And he has, and he's here right now. So let me introduce Mr. Broughton.
Hello, Joe.
And let me see something here. Yes, that's better. Hello, Mr. Broughton.
Hello, Joe. Thank you for your patience.
Not hearing you.
You're not hearing me. Well, I'm not sure what to say.
Yeah, can't hear you, Larry.
How about that? How about now? Yes?
Still can't hear you.
Interesting. Hold on.
Okay, so while Larry is fixing his mic, so I hired Larry to be my coach, and you see him. He's a big hulking guy, 6'5", former Green Beret. Are you good now?
I don't know.
No, I don't know what. Hold on a second.
Make sure it's not on your end.
Maybe it's me.
Yeah.
Audio.
Was it you, Joe?
Can you say something?
How about that? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it was me.
Well, listen, Joe, thanks for having me on here. I'm sorry, I dialed into the Google Drive or the Google whatever it was before I did the StreamYard. So,
I almost did that too.
All right, well, there you go. All right, well, here we are.
Yes. So I was just giving people some background on you and how we got together. I was telling them about. I hired you and I couldn't afford you. I couldn't even pay my rent at the time.
Yeah, I remember that.
But I needed to do something different. And long story short, it's worked out.
Yes.
It's worked out.
I think it's more than worked out, hasn't it, Joe?
Oh yeah.
It's more than worked out. Well, I think there's a lesson in that, isn't there?
There's been a lot of lessons, Larry. There's been a lot.
Well, sometimes you've got to step out of your comfort zone and stop doing what's safe. Because crying out loud, if you would have kept doing what you'd always done, guess what? You would have gotten what you'd always had gotten.
Yeah, I'd have a lot of rich clients. I'd be miserable.
Yeah.
And I'd still be in New York fighting with the traffic.
Right. Right.
But anyway, so I started working with you, and I expected you to start telling me to do 1,000 push-ups and sit-ups a day. And what did you do? You gave me that spider graph.
Yeah.
And asked me, how is my relationships?
Yeah.
How is my spirituality? How is my health?
Right.
Very, very important.
Well, I learned that the hard way, Joe. A bunch of years ago, I had listen, I used to be married, wonderful woman, great mother to my children. And, but I was always striving for the brass ring, the gold nugget, the dollar signs, right? Building my empire. And my self-worth was tied to my net worth in my head. The more money I make, the better I am as a human, right? Well, guess what? When my former spouse finally got fed up of not seeing me, and saying, this is not what I signed up for, and said, well, I'm not going to do this anymore, I had to reevaluate all of that. And what I realized, Joe, is that life begins beyond the bottom line. It really does. Because if we don't have our physical health, we don't have our emotional health or our spiritual health or healthy relationships with our family or our friends, our children, our parents, whatever it is, I don't care how much money you've got. And I've been around some very, me, You have
Yeah.
too. Been around some very wealthy people who have very big bank accounts, and they are miserable. They're miserable.
That's something that I learned early in my career. I had a client that was worth $10 million. You could write a check for $3 million and it would clear.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most miserable people I ever met. His
Sad.
children hated him. And I always said,
Yeah.
what is this? And then I had clients with nothing. And they would this one couple, they had 3 young children.
Yes.
Living from week to every year, they would come in happy. Oh, how much are we going to owe them? And I always thought about that. I was like, I don't want to be like destitute, but I want to be somewhere in the middle. I want money, but I want to be happy like that.
Yeah. Well, I learned that from traveling the world. I've not been to like as many countries as some of you folks, but I've been to, I think 42 or 43. And well, I know people who've been to more, right? But that's a lot of countries, right?
Now you're going to be in another one.
That's right. And I've never been to Philippines, and so I'm really looking forward to that. But I see that there are people through Eastern and Southern Africa and parts of Indonesia who have virtually nothing, but they have joy in their life. They have good relationships, right? And, they say money can't buy happiness. I don't know so much about that. I've had money. I grew up very, well, in the United States, it's called the working poor. Do you remember that term from the 70s?
Oh, yeah.
80s? Yeah. So that was my family. We were part of the working poor. And so I've been that where like I had an older brother. And so when it was time for school, I didn't get new clothes or new shoes. I got his old stuff. They called them hand-me-downs back then. I don't even know if they still do that nowadays, right? So for most of my school years, I didn't have that. I never had a new bike until I think I might have been 17, and I know that's a lot because many people have never even had a bicycle, right? I get this. But once traveling through Eastern and Southern Africa and seeing the difference, right? I should have known, but I got seduced by what a lot of us get seduced by, growing the business and making the money and then not being very happy along the way. So anyway, when we started working with each other, I'd been doing some coaching and mentoring for a couple of decades at that point and realized it was more important. Listen, if you've got all these other healthy areas of your life squared away, the finances are going to take care of themselves.
Absolutely. So that's what you mean by below the bottom line, right?
Yes, that's right.
It was really what I learned from you is I had to work on myself from the inside out. And it's changed my life. It's changed my life. Yeah, it's changed my business, but, and that's important because I can help a lot of people now.
Well, I think we need to remember that, though, Joe, because none of us are perfect. And although we grow and we get better, it doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect every single day. We're still going to make mistakes. We're still going to maybe lose our temper once in a while, or we're going to say something that might be inappropriate, or we're going to go to the negative thinking. There's a guy named Dr. Daniel Amen, who's got a book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And he talks about this ant behavior, which is the automatic negative thoughts that we oftentimes get into our heads. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
I always screw up. I'm never going to be good. Those negative kind of thoughts that swirl around in our heads. And with discipline and practice, we can control them a little bit better, but it's rare that they ever go completely away. And so you may have an off day where you're like, you lose your temper with someone. But if you're courageous enough to apologize and say, hey, I kind of handled that, poorly, I think you build trust with people when you do that.
Yeah.
But we're none of us perfect. We're all on a journey.
You've given me so many nuggets since we've met.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, you said serve first.
Yeah.
Serve first. You remember that? And I went home.
Yeah.
Good.
No,
I went home, Larry, and I don't know if I ever told you this.
Yeah.
I went home and I took that and I said, okay, I'm going to serve first. I'm going to take money out of the equation. I'm going to look at all my clients and see what they really need.
Yes.
See what they really need without, raising their fee. And a year later, my revenue went up 40%.
Yeah. Yes.
The other thing that you told me recently, I said, how do you keep motivated? And what did you say? You said discipline beats motivation every day.
That's right.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
These
Well,
simple things that you say all the time.
well, I'm a student of human behavior. So I do know that all of us have giftings, right, from our creator. And I do think that that's one of my gifts, is that I'm able to see complex situations and simplify it.
Right.
But the serve first thing, I learned from spiritual teachings and from my time in the military, that folks who go in the military around the world, they go into what generally they say they go into the service. They're serving a cause bigger than themselves, right? And successful business owners serve their clients, they serve their team members, they serve their stakeholders, but it goes beyond that. You're also serving the family members of your employees and team members.
Yeah. What do you call that? The
Sphere of influence.
yeah.
Sphere of influence, like everyone that you have an impact on, right? And I don't have just an impact on my vendors, but my vendors' families. Because if I don't pay my vendors, guess what? They can't pay their bills either. And it can be quite humbling when you do a count of all the people that you have an impact on, right? And oftentimes, Joe, just in life, it beats us down sometimes, right? And it feels like the world is on our shoulders and we don't know what to do. And I've learned just from heartache and from trials and teaching other people and watching other people, that when you don't know what to do and you feel lost, just serve someone else who needs help. And it doesn't mean, Joe, that you need to sell all your belongings and move to India and serve in the ghettos of Calcutta. You don't need to do that, the slums of Calcutta. It means if you see someone at a grocery store who's struggling, an elderly person who needs help getting something off the shelf, to help them, you know. It means if you see someone in the parking lot somewhere and they're trying to get their kids loaded up and their groceries in the car, help them. It's those small little things, holding the door for someone and just smiling at them. That's serving people. And it can be as, much bigger as well. But serve first, I think, is a really important mantra in our life. And the motivation thing is, who is it? Is it, who's the guy? The author escapes me, but he says, motivation is like showering. There's a reason we have to take a shower every day. It wears out, right? But discipline every day, seeing improvement in our life every day it's the mojo happens, the big momentum happens, right? When you're disciplined and do things small every day. Darren Hardy talks about this in The Compound Effect, which is the best New York Times bestselling book, right? It's those small incremental things that are done consistently that moves the needle. There's a saying that says, small hinges move big doors. That's a great metaphor, isn't it? It's a great visual. Small hinges move big doors.
Yeah.
It's those small little things done every single day that make a difference.
So let's lead up to where I am and how I got here.
All right, let's talk about that.
So, yeah, what I learned, I consider myself the best student in the world.
Yes, I agree. You're one of the best, for sure.
I do, because I'm like, if I'm paying Larry, I'm going to do everything he says. I don't care if it's stepping out of my comfort zone, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And thank you for that. I'm way out of my comfort zone, and I'm like, I embrace it now. I'm like, bring it on.
Yes.
It's like I'm not comfortable if I'm not out of my comfort zone. So one of the things that you offered me, you said, "Oh, I started this business, and I want you to be." What did you call it? It wasn't a beta tester.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you didn't call it a beta tester.
Which one are you talking? Are you talking about the
Hire My VA?
Hire My VA, an early adopter?
Right. Oh, yeah, that's what it was.
Hmm.
So you said, I want you to try this thing, and it was all about hiring people from the Philippines.
Yeah.
Now, You know, I mean, in my accounting practice, I have spent decades hiring people all over the world,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it never worked, including American people. Okay, I couldn't find an American accountant. I all over the world for decades,
Right.
and whatever the reason, communication, my lack of knowing how to hire people, it just never worked out. I never hired anyone in the Philippines.
Yes.
So I went through your course. You had, the step by step from how to word a job offer,
Right.
right? Remember that secret word, put baseball in there.
Yeah.
And that, so you eliminate people that aren't paying attention.
Or
And
lack of
then
attention to detail. Yeah.
right, right. And I'm in the accounting business. I mean, if you can't pay attention to details, we're all in trouble.
Right.
But then you made them jump through other hoops. They had to do a video. They had to do this and that. And
Sure.
so in November, coming up on November, it'll be Janine's 3-year anniversary. She was our first hire.
Congratulations. Yeah.
And she was a graphic designer.
Mm-hmm.
And if I told you, I have watched her grow.
Yeah.
And I know that you because you've helped me, you've helped countless people do this. I can't even, you can't even put a price on that. She came as a graphic designer.
Yeah.
She learned how to do our website. She's our marketing director now.
Sure. Sure.
And I was like, oh, this worked. So then we hired an accountant and then another one.
Yeah.
And then we needed a VA. And I lost track of how many people we have now, Larry, all from the Philippines.
Yeah. Yeah. I love working with folks from the Philippines for a bunch of reasons. For starters, I think there's a cultural sense of hospitality and wanting to do a great job. Americans used to have that reputation, but we've lost that over the last couple of decades,
Yeah.
And obviously not everyone in the Philippines is like this, but, generally speaking, right, there is a culture of striving towards excellence. That's awesome, right? Because mediocrity is the kiss of death for any organization.
My people, they're like knowledge junkies. I never saw people so intent on learning.
Right. No, I love that. I love
family.
Right.
Family. That's what I grew up with. I grew up in a big Italian family, and that's what I get with them.
Yeah. And there's a sense of loyalty as well.
Loyalty.
That's really
honesty, integrity.
Honesty, right? These are all important elements that any business wants. And I'm so glad that Janine is still with you. I think it was Peter Drucker who said that the primary goal of a leader is to create more leaders. And doesn't it make you feel great on the inside, Joe, when you see someone grow within your organization? You've invested a little bit of time and energy and training in them. And you see them better versions of themselves, right?
Listen, I can't tell you how many times they picked me up. Yeah, I have seen them forget about rising, forget about stepping out of their comfort zone. I mean, they just keep rising to the occasion, which just makes me want to challenge them more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it led me. So right now, like I said, it was me and my mom for over 15 years, just the two of us. I wanted a business I could scale.
Yes.
And today I have a business. We just keep growing. I mean, you've seen us when it was just me and Elizabeth.
Yeah. Right.
And, so last December I came here to visit my team, and it snowballed into now I'm actually living here full time and enjoying it. And we are having our second jumpstart your freelance career, and you agreed to travel halfway around the world and be our keynote speaker, and I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. Obviously, I love training. I love doing keynotes. I love travel. and I get to fit all of that into one trip. So why not do it?
Yeah.
Right? And I love meeting new people. So this is
Yeah,
gonna,
and
I'm
they're
looking
gonna love
forward.
meeting you.
It's gonna be a blast.
So, and what I see here, Larry, and it's almost like what would you call it? It's like COVID woke up this country because COVID forced people to have to work from home, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they got a taste of it. They got a taste of that freedom.
Sure. Well, I think there's a lot of people who felt like they were going to be, I'm going to use this word and it might be charged, but a slave to a boss for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Right. And, the problem with that is that, when you don't freelance, now, if you've got a great boss, it can be a great gig. Right. And, you show up, you do your job, and you're going to get your paycheck. Right. Freelancing, there is certainly a healthy level of freedom that goes with that. And I think most people will define success as basically having freedom to do what you want. That's real success in my book. Right. And so freelancing allows folks to do that. Now, the downside of freelancing is that if you don't know how to fill your pipeline with clients, you're going to be out there hustling constantly, right? So one of the things, there's many things that I love about what you're doing, Joe, is that there will always be businesses. There will always be the need for bookkeeping and accounting. There will always be a need for enrolled agents. And so this is one of those industries that I don't care what happens with taxes or AI or any of these other things, there's going to be a need for the services that you're providing.
Yeah. I just want to mention something. I'm reading this book, The Millionaire Mind.
Oh, yeah, right? Sure. Yep.
And he's talking about risk and gambling.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you go on your own, it's a risk, right?
That's right.
Because there's no guarantee you're going to get clients. When you have a job, it's like you're going to get a paycheck. But what these people said, most of the millionaires, they said being self-employed was less risky.
Yeah. Because
they controlled their destiny.
That's absolutely right.
Right?
That's right.
They decided what they were going to do. They didn't leave it up to somebody else.
But the difference here, and that's a great book, by the way, everyone should be reading The Millionaire Mind. But how old is that? 25 years old now, I think, something like that. It's been around.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's been around for a while. The good thing, what they're talking about are the millionaires, the people who actually separated themselves from the pack, right? That not everyone becomes a millionaire, because there are a lot of people who, just because you go out on your own, just because you take that risk, you take that gamble to set up your own business, there's a lot more to it than that. You've learned that, Joe. How long were you on your own before you hit the tipping point and things really started to work for you? You've got to be smart enough to get mentors in your life who have been down the path before you. You've got to have the grit to stick it out, because it's going to get difficult sometimes, right? You've got to have the discipline to show up. You got to have some ingenuity to go out and find new clients, create new products. That's another reason why your business has been growing, is because you're not just sticking with, I'm only going to do bookkeeping, I'm only going to do CPA stuff. You've created this academy and courses and classes, right? And that's the ingenuity that's going to separate the wheat from the chaff, right? The people who succeed and those who don't. And then you've got what my grandmother used to call stick-to-itiveness, the grit to carry on.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
So you'll see firsthand, because what I've seen here, Larry, it's amazing. It's like the whole country. It was like being a freelancer, being able to work remotely.
Yeah.
Was a secret. It's like they didn't know it existed. And I know this because we hired team members. And I said, how come you never did this before? And they said, I didn't know you can.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, it's like this movement. And I'm thinking it reminds me of the 60s with Martin Luther King. Remember they had all those people and I'm like, oh my God, there's something going on here, and it's special. And what's special about it is, and I know, we're changing people's lives. We've taken people that had that corporate job, and they couldn't be with their family. Now they're home with their family. We have one woman, she came to our event last year, and she heard Luz's story. Luz had this job. She's got a really powerful story, but
Yeah.
she was trying to get a freelancing position, but she had no accounting experience. I didn't even know that, and we hired her.
Yeah.
So it was like she just had the determination, and a lot of people saw that and were inspired. But Grace was there, and she heard her story, and she said, maybe I could do this. Now, Grace had to live, and there's a lot of people in the Philippines that have to move far away from their family.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of them have to move to other countries. So Grace was far away from her family, and she said, if I could be a freelancer, I can be back with my family. And she took our course, and we wound up hiring her. She's one of our full-time team members now,
Yeah.
and she's back with her family. And that's, you can't put a price on that. And it's happening all over the country.
Yeah, well, it's a strange confluence of events, right? That not only are people waking up in the Philippines that they can do it, there's also American business owners who are realizing I don't need to have someone in my office every single day doing it. I can do many of these tasks remotely. And so there's a need in one country and there is demand or availability in another country. And it really speaks to this global community. Joe, I hear these stories all the time. We've got, Dave and I, my business partner, and a couple of my businesses, we've got VAs from the Philippines as well. And some of our own team members have been able to buy their own house for the first time, because of the fair wage that they're being paid, or pay for hospital bills for their family members that they wouldn't have been able to pay otherwise. One of our members, who I think is going to be at your event there in October, is able to get married and move out of her parents' house, because of this. Yeah, this is multi-generational impact that you're making in the world, and that your team members are able to make, because we can break these multi-generational curses of poverty, addiction, whatever it is, right? And that's where the real meaning comes in. That's where my heart really fills up when I start hearing stories like this.
Yeah, and I know what your deal was, because when you started working with me, because I said, why are you working with me? And you said, because you're full of untapped potential.
Yes, that's for sure.
You remember that?
Well, so listen, I saw you at another coaching program where I used to go when I was a trainer, right? And I'd seen you there for several years. I was like, oh, you're in the same spot today as you were when I met you. What's going on?
Doing the same thing over and over again, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'll take you up on that, because it really got me mad, to be honest. I said, I'll show Larry.
I remember.
So I'm like, I look at what I'm doing. I'm looking at my own sphere of influence. I'm like, oh my God, Larry used me to increase his sphere of influence.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a good thing. God bless you. God bless you.
God bless you too.
And I'm really looking forward to your trip here. I'm hoping that you like it so much. You love it as much as I did, and you open up your own hotel here.
Let's do it. Sounds good.
So let's talk about the event.
I may need a bookkeeping and accounting staff, Joe. You know anybody?
I'll find out. I'll put the word out.
Okay, good.
So I know you're a really busy guy. I appreciate you coming on today.
My pleasure.
But let's just give people so you're going to be the keynote speaker. What exactly are you going to talk about?
I don't know what I'm going to talk about yet. I know that I want to talk about potential and mindset. I do know that, because as you said, sometimes we don't even know that we've got potential inside us until somebody recognizes it and points to it, right? It's like, sometimes people will write a message on the mirror in their bathroom to inspire them in the morning, and after like day number 3, they don't even see the message that's there any
Oh, yeah.
longer. You become blind to it, right? So sometimes we
Yes.
need people outside ourselves to recognize that potential. But
So I know what the title is of your talk. It's
what's the title?
How to Become a Rock Star VA.
Yeah, and that's what I said. Part of it is the mindset part, right? But I do want to talk about what it takes to serve a business owner, particularly American business owner, because there's some cultural differences, right?
You think?
Yes, I do think. Because we've dealt with we've placed hundreds of VAs with American companies at this point, so there are themes, right? But it'll be fun, it'll be inspiring. I think people will laugh and have a good time along the way. But my hope is that the lessons that they learn from my talk or my presentation, they can apply to many areas of their life, not just as being a virtual assistant. One of my mantras, Joe, is if you want to do great things, you have to be a great person. Okay? So if you want to be a great CPA, you need to be a great person. If you want to be a great virtual assistant or a great parent or a great friend, you need to be a great person. There are a lot of people who pretend or they fake it, but their relationships aren't very deep and they're not very strong, right? And so I'm so focused at this point in my life of how do we become a great person so that we can be a great VA and we become a great business owner and we be a great grandparent or parent, right? And there's something about that. I think that it's pursuing greatness and that doesn't mean like lots of money. I'm just talking about being a great person. That to me is so attractive. The physical thing that look at you and me, we're not as, good looking as we used to be in our 20s and 30s, right?
It's big for yourself.
Okay. But boy, when someone has a great spirit and a good heart, isn't that so much more attractive? I believe it is.
Laws of attraction, right?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Oh yeah.
And so the good news is that when you are trying to become a better version of yourself, you attract better people around you. I think the universe, God, Gaia, whatever you call this, this higher power, I think that's a reward.
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
Like attracts like. Yeah. So hire my VA.
Yes.
How do people, because you're going to be talking to a lot of VAs that want to be hired.
Yeah.
How do they connect with you?
Well, through social media is probably the easiest way to do it. We've got Hire My VA social media accounts, but it's probably easier just to find me on social media.
You're on LinkedIn a lot.
I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter or whatever they're called, X. Those are the major ones that I'm on.
What about just hiremyva.com?
Well, yeah, you can go there for sure. There's an info section on there.
Okay.
And let us know that you're available. There's 2 services that we provide, Joe, to our clients like you. One is what we call a white glove service, where someone comes to us, an employer here in the United States, and say, "Hey, I need an accountant, or I need a true executive assistant, or I need a graphic designer, or whatever it is." And so the white glove service is that we will go through, we'll interview them, we'll do initial interviews we'll interview the employer, and then we'll we'll interview a bunch of candidates and present them 3 candidates that they can choose from. And then there's the do it on your own, right? And so
that's what I did. I went through. You actually have a program. You have a whole course.
Yeah, and it's mostly video with forms and that kind of thing. And what we try to do, Joe, is get employers. Let me back up. There are a lot of placement agencies who will place a virtual assistant, but that's all they do.
Right.
We take a different approach. We make sure that the employer is prepared. So we do a prepare, hire, and thrive. We break it down into 3 different sections. Preparing is, do you really know what job it is that you're trying to fill? Do you have a great job description? What's your needs assessment? So we really make sure that's done. And so that's the prepare part. The hire part is making sure that they have an orientation process, that they go through the legal channels, make sure that's all taken care of, an onboarding process so that you can clearly state what the expectations are of the candidate who's coming on board. And then the third part is, in many ways, the most important part. That is to thrive. How do you build an organization where people want to be there, where they can succeed, that they have the tools and the communication skills to effectively state, hey, here's what my process has been, and here's what the reward is going to be. Because, boy, you could hire someone, and if they're not thriving, they're dying. Nobody wants an organization with a bunch of dying team members. I mean, emotionally dying.
Right.
So many surveys, particularly done by the Gallup organization around the world, has shown that the number one reason people leave an organization is because they don't feel like they're being professionally developed. They don't feel like they're a better team member today than they were 6 months ago. And so they migrate somewhere else.
I read about this Harvard study where what they said was basically people want to know what their job is and that they're doing good at it.
Yeah.
They want to know that more than they want money.
That's right. Yeah. So why is it, and we know that, and we've known it for years, why is it that most managers, and I'm using that word intentionally, not leaders, why do most managers not tell their team members where they stand?
Why?
Yeah.
Because they don't have you as a coach?
I think that's part of it. No, I think that there's a lot of fear among middle managers. And so they quote unquote lead through intimidation versus leading through inspiration. Right. And so they want to make sure that the team member is below them. I think the most effective managers and leaders develop their team in such a way that they want their team members to surpass them. It's almost like being a good parent, right? Great parents want their children to have a better life than what they had, right? And effective managers and leaders should feel the same way, right? I learned this when I was in martial arts 100 years ago. My twin brother and I have been in martial arts since we were young. And my sensei, my instructor said, hey, there are teachers and there are performers. Larry, you're a really good teacher, but you're a better performer. This is back 100 years ago. My brother has been one of those great, like exceptional performers and exceptional teachers. My instructor, he was a great teacher. He wasn't like so great at getting out there and fighting and doing all that kind of stuff, but he was an amazing teacher, right? Managers need to be teachers, developers, and they ought to get a high out of it, but most aren't. Most just happen to be a technician who've been around a position long enough and they get promoted. That's not good. That's not good.
So I'd like to wrap this up.
Great.
Because we could talk forever.
Yes, that would be fun.
I know you have a lot of words of wisdom. For the freelancers, we got a lot of people commenting here. What can you say to inspire them to take the leap, step out of their comfort zone?
Yeah. Well, there is a saying, most people live the quiet lives of desperation, right? That's a sad image. One of the mantras that I kind of have hung on to over the years, and I learned this during the same time that I told you I was going through this crash and burn emotionally after my divorce a long time ago, is that success is empty and hollow if that's all you're chasing. If all you're chasing is success, all you're chasing is money, that's not going to be any good. Those people tend to drive their life off a cliff. Marriages break up, relationships break up, people end up being very unhappy. What I would prefer people do is to seek a life of significance. Play a significant life in the role of your family, in your place of worship, in your community, at the workplace. Like really try to make an impact, make a difference in those communities. And what you'll find is that success is the byproduct of a life of significance. If you're trying to play a significant positive role in every area of your life around you, success is going to come. It will find you. It has to. the world needs that. So serve
Love it.
serve people first.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Larry. I'm looking forward to you coming here.
Yeah, me too.
God bless you. God bless everyone. Thank you all for watching. That's our story. We're sticking with it, folks. See you next time.
All right, we'll see you.